Good evening, everyone. We're starting on page 270. Today we are starting a new letter. Page 270.
Gimel.
Siman Vav Gimel, right? 23rd chapter of Iggeres HaKodesh.
You said 270?
270, yeah.
Page 270.
So this letter that we are about to start learning, as I mentioned in the past, there's a sefer called Iggeres Kodesh Admor Zaken, Letters of the Alter Rebbe. A big sefer with many, many more letters than what is printed over here. So apparently, the editors of Iggeres HaKodesh, the sons of the Alter Rebbe, when they prepared it for print, so they didn't think that every single one of the letters was appropriate to include in Tanya. They included only the letters that were very, of relevance to the wider relevance to everyone for all time. And even the letters they included, as we've mentioned in the past, sometimes they were edited. In other words, they were cut down, they were excerpted. Redacted. But all the letters that we have in Iggeres HaKodesh are also printed in Iggeres HaKodesh of the Alter Rebbe. All the letters here are printed there also, but there are many more that aren't printed over here. And over there, one of the things that's interesting is to look over there is because over here in Tanya, the letters are all undated. But over there, the editors of the Sefer, of the Iggeres HaKodesh, they made an effort to try to figure out, sometimes with, they have real evidence of when the letter was written, sometimes they take educated guesses. So they estimate that this letter that we're going to learn right now was written before the year 1885, which makes it one of the earlier letters. In fact, that Sefer Iggeres HaKodesh, the letters over there are printed chronologically, and this is the fifth letter that appears in the Sefer. So this is the fifth letter which we have existing, at least according to their estimations, of the Alter Rebbe.
Why is the letters not dated?
Here in Tanya over here?
Yeah, in general.
Because they didn't think it was relevant. The date is Yud Zayin Cheshvan Tavshin Pei Gimel. That's the date on the letter. It's written to us here today. So why is it important to know? I guess.
No, you said they were trying to figure it out. Usually, when you write a letter, you usually date the letter. Why would you have to figure it out? Letters, those manuscripts should have dates on it.
Sometimes they were, and sometimes they weren't. Sometimes the Chassidim who were copying the letters didn't think that was of relevance. They didn't copy the date. No, there are definitely certain letters that have dates then, and some of them don't. But Al Kapanim, this letter over here is one of the earlier letters. As we discussed when we were learning the last chapter in Iggeres HaKodesh, this letter, by the way, is not about tzedakah. In fact, we're going to take a little break from tzedakah. This letter is not about tzedakah. The next letter is not about tzedakah. And the next letter is not about tzedakah. And the next three letters after that are, I think, the next letter that's going to be about tzedakah, I think, is Siman Chavtes, actually, which is in a while from now. No, not either. No, Chavtes also is not about tzedakah. No, Lamed. The next letter is Lamed. So the next bunch of letters that we're going to be learning is not about tzedakah. But what is this letter about? As we mentioned, one of the things about the infancy of Chassidus is that there started becoming Chassidish shuls, congregations. Chassidim in every single city, they broke away from the main kehillah. They established their own shuls with their own nusach and their own manhagim. And we have quite a few letters from the Alter Rebbe, some of them printed here in Iggeres HaKodesh, some of them are not printed over here, with Alter Rebbe addressing these new shuls, these new congregations with different directives. If you recall, the very first letter of Iggeres HaKodesh, Alter Rebbe asking them all to make a Siyam Hashas every single year, to make a Chalukas Hashas and a Siyam Hashas. So this is another letter which is directed specifically to the shuls, the new Chabad shuls. And as we'll see, the point of the letter, the Alter Rebbe, which we're going to get to, is the Alter Rebbe is going to be talking about the value of learning Torah, specifically with a minyan. The Mishnah says in Pirkei Avos, Hasara sheyeshven, the 10 people who are sitting and learning Torah, Shechina shrei b'neihem, the Shechina is among them. And on that note, our ninth just entered the room. So I was asking if there's going to be a minyan today. Maybe someone should stand outside and say, ask people, we need a center, we need a tenth. For what? For we have a shear. We need a tenth. Why? Because the Mishnah says that we have 10 minion who sit there learning, so the Shekhinah is there. Sorry? We're going to get to the Afilu Echad. It doesn't say Afilu Echad, it doesn't say about Shekhinah, it says something else there. We'll learn about this soon. But Al Kapanim, so the Alter Rebbe is, as we'll see, where's the Alter Rebbe going to go? We're going to end up in this letter. It's talking about specifically the time between Mincha and Ma'ariv. Alter Rebbe says that. I think we have a minion.
I heard something.
Yeah.
No, he's not going to stay here.
So what is Asara Sheyesh?
So that means that there's a Shekhinah by only one.
So why did Mishnah say that if 10 people are sitting learning, there's a Shekhinah there?
Yeah, but then it goes down.
I asked you a question. If the Shekhinah is by one person, so why does the Mishnah say that if 10 people are sitting learning, the Shekhinah is there?
Well, it wants to emphasize that there's a Baravam Hadras Melech.
It doesn't say that. It says Asara Sheyesh, and 10 people are sitting learning, the Shekhinah is there. Now, if the Shekhinah is there by one person, then why would the Mishnah say 10 people?
It's different. It's something different.
It's a different...
different quality?
Obviously.
So a different quality, but it doesn't mean that there's no Shekhinah with only...
But obviously it's a different quality.
With less than 10.
Obviously it's a different quality of Asara Shekhinah, otherwise the Mishnah wouldn't say it.
Intensity.
Okay, so that's
more powerful.
So obviously there's a quality of Asara Shekhinah that exists when 10 Yidden are sitting learning, which does not exist when one person sits and learns.
Okay.
That's obvious.
Where's these letters posted? I'm kind of curious. You're right. These letters, they were not mass produced in those days. They posted in where? You know, if they had
They'd be hand copied
all over Europe.
They'd be hand copied. They'd be hand copied.
And give it to what? It's posted in a bulletin board. What?
Possible.
These letters would be dated because the Sefer doesn't have dates of the different letters.
Oh, we're talking about
We just spoke about a break-in.
Oh, I just. Oh, okay.
You missed all the fun.
I know. I missed very sure along the way.
So now the 10th person walked in, the 9th person walked out. Good. Anyways. No, we have them.
We have no. The 9th person is right here.
No. I'm talking about good. We have a meeting. Very good. So the Rebbe says that the time between Mincha and Ma'ariv, he found that people were wasting their time. I'm sitting and speaking to Varm Batelim in the shul between Mincha and Ma'ariv. The Rebbe was very disturbed by that. The Rebbe says no. During this time, we have to sit and you have to learn. However, not that people should learn by themselves, and not that people should even learn b'chavrusa, but rather this is a time that should be used out to learn ba'asara, to learn with a minion. And the Rebbe even, as we'll see, when we get there, not today, but when we get there, the Rebbe even suggests what should be learned. The Rebbe specifically says what the Chassidim should learn in Mincha Ma'ariv. And this because the value of Asara Sheyeshun Ve'eskim B'Torah. Now, as we know, something that we've become accustomed to with the letters of the Alter Rebbe, that even when the Alter Rebbe has a straight-out request, the Alter Rebbe doesn't just go straight to the request. Instead, the Alter Rebbe first explains the mystical significance of the request that he's about to make. We had this by tzedakah read many times. And in general, that's the derech. The Alter Rebbe goes and talks about it. Al-Pi Primis Yanim talks about it. Al-Pi Chassidus, Al-Pi Kabbalah. And the same thing over here. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to talk about the mila of a minyan, the mila of learning Torah, specifically with a minyan. And after that, Alter Rebbe is going to get down to business and say what his practical request is. So that's where we are. So let's do this inside. Simin Chal Gimel. B'gzeiras irin pizgama o maimer kadishin. By decree of the angels is the following statement, and it is the saying of the holy ones. So the words you have, this is actually a quote from a pasuk in Daniel. The word irin, the gzeira of the irin. Irin are those who are always awake, and that's a reference to malachim. Malachim will never sleep. Those who say Zmiris on Shabbos, right? We have Irin Kadishin. Irin Kadishin means the Malachim. The Malachim are always awake. So the Alter Rebbe is saying over here, what I'm going to tell you right now is not my idea, and it's not. This really isn't I'm not the source of this. But rather, the source is the saying of the Kadishin of the holy ones and the Malachim. This is a reference to the Chazal. Chazal are called Malachim, and the Gemara talks about the Chachamim as Malachim. Chachmi HaMishnah. I'm just here to repeat to you that which the Chacham of the Mishnah say, Aleim Mashallah, Sheshanu b'Mishnasam, that they teach in their Mishnah, and Pirkei Avos, and Perigimel, Asara sheyeshven va'isken b'Torah, Shechina shruya b'neim, that when you have 10 people sitting and learning Torah together, so the Shechina is present among them. Kizeh kol ha'adam, for this is the entire purpose of the human being. In fact, the whole reason why the neshama comes down over here into this world is for the purpose of this aliyah, this tremendous ascent. Asher ein aliyah l'mayla himenu, which there is no greater aliyah than this, which is the aliyah which is experienced when 10 Yidden gather together and they learn Torah. It's a pretty radical statement. Alter Rebbe is saying here. We know there's this concept of Yerida Tzerech Aliyah. That every Yerida, the Eibishter is doch, Hashem is doch good and He's kind. Why would Hashem cause a Yerida? And obviously, whenever there's Yerida, the purpose of the Yerida is to bring about a greater Aliyah afterwards. That's always true in life. For example, Golus, right? What does the pasuk say? Rega katen azatich. What?
Sheva Yipol.
Tzaddik. Okay, but that not Sheva Yipol tzaddik v'kam only means that he'll get up. But the Yerida Serech Aliyah means that it's not just that the purpose of the descent is for an Aliyah that you should reach even a level which is even higher than you were beforehand.
Right.
So, for example, again, when it comes to Golus, what do we say? We say that. What does the pasuk say? Berega koten azavtich. When I left you, I abandoned you. I neglected you for a small moment. But the purpose of that is that with great mercy, I will gather you. So the whole Yerid of Golus is intended to bring about even a greater aliyah, which we did not have even before we went into Golus. And similarly, there's something which the Alter Rebbe talks about repeatedly, especially in Likutei Torah and Torah. We know that for the neshama to come down over here into this world is a tremendous Yerid. In the words of the Zohar, it's Me'igra Rama Labira Amikta. From a very high roof to a very low down dungeon. That's what the neshama comes down to. The neshama is in Gan Eden above. The neshama is Chatzuva Mitachas Kisei HaKavod. The neshama is hewn out of beneath Hashem's throne of glory. And the neshama is thrown down here into this world, a physical world filled with klipa and filled with temptations and filled with all sorts of vices. And what's the reason why? The answer is because you read that Tzerech Aliyah. Ultimately, dafke through coming down into this world, the neshama achieves an Aliyah. Now, normally when we talk about you read the Tzerech Aliyah of the neshama, the intention is that the neshama comes down over here into this world, which is taka yirida. But then, after the neshama concludes its mission and its task over here in the world, after 120 years, so then the neshama goes up to Gan Eden. And the neshama experiences an aliyah, even relative to where it was before it came down here into this world. But here the Alter Rebbe is saying something different. He's saying the yerida of the neshama here into this world is for the purpose of the aliyah. What aliyah? Not the aliyah of the Gan Eden after 120 years. The aliyah that's experienced when 10 Yidden are sitting together, when Asara Sheyeshven V'Esken B'Torah, 10 Yidden are sitting together, that is such a phenomenal aliyah. The Shechina shruya b'neihem, the Shechina that's present amongst the minyan of Yidden who are learning Torah together is so phenomenal that the whole purpose of the neshama coming down here into the world of the Yerida is to bring about that aliyah which we right now sitting over here in this room are experiencing. The Ashras HaShechina and the aliyah that the neshama has from that when 10 Yidden are sitting and learning Torah together. How great is this aliyah? So the Rebbe continues and says, the power of the Shechina, which is Begavim Meremim, which is the highest of the highest heavens. Sorry, I read that wrong. Kishchinas Uzoi, the power of Hashem Shechina, Asher Begavim Meremim, which in the highest of heavens, V'Hashamayim, which may Hashamayim, and the heavens of the heavens. Lo Yichalku Lui Masa, they cannot tolerate the awesomeness of the Shechina. They cannot contain it. Tishkoin v'tiskadol b'seich b'nei Yisrael. That level of Shechina, the powerful level of the Shechina, which the heavens can't contain, the heavens can't tolerate. That is Shoira, it dwells, and it is exalted, B'soich b'nei Yisrael, specifically amongst Klal Yisrael, when there's a million of Yidden sitting and learning Torah together.
It's an incredible irony that what they can't handle up in a holier place, they can handle here. That's like mind-blowing.
Right. You know who first expressed that? That irony? Shlomo HaMelech. When he was inaugurating the Beis HaMikdash, the words that Alter Rebbe is using over here are borrowed from there. Shlomo HaMelech said, "Hashemayim u'shmei Hashemayim lo yichal kaluchal." The heavens and the highest of heavens cannot contain you. Va'af ki habayis hazeh. And this physical home can contain you. Shlomo HaMelech was expressing his astonishment at that. That which in Gan Eden, the Gili Elokus, which in Gan Eden cannot contain or tolerate, we have in the Beis HaMikdash. In the physical Beis HaMikdash. And why is that? Obviously, this all goes back to the concept of Dira B'Tachtoinim, and the purpose of Hashem's creation of everything is Nafki this world, and Hashem wants to be present over here in this world, and therefore we're able to experience Hashem in a way which is not experienced in higher worlds. And the whole purpose... Sorry?
Both Beit HaMikdash, because they said that in the first Beit HaMikdash was more the Shekhinah than in the second one.
Right. Yeah, that's Perik Lun Beis in chapter 52 of Tanya. Alter Rebbe talks about the difference in the first Beis HaMikdash and the second Beis HaMikdash. This pasuk was said about the first Beis HaMikdash. Yes, and there definitely was a difference in the levels. And what exactly was the level of the first and the second? Alter Rebbe talks about that again in Perik Nun Gimel, chapter 53.
Is there a similar chazal by Tefillah when 10 people daven together? I don't recall that there is. I mean, we quote this chazal by learning together the Shekhinah by Tefillah. Is there such a similar chazal?
No, there isn't.
That's surprising.
But as we continue, we'll see. We'll touch upon it.
All right.
We'll definitely touch upon it.
Okay.
At the same time, ain't kedusha kedusha satira. There's no. It's not surprising.
Of course,
there's no kedusha.
So why do you call it a Yerida altogether? If this is such a big milah, and you can't acquire that in the other skin. So it's not a Yerida. It's
it is Yerida.
But you're just describing that that you can't accomplish this in any other world.
Right.
Only here.
That's correct.
So
why is it that we can accomplish it only over here?
Because Kodesh Baruch Hu because his dwelling place is over here. He wanted to dwell over here.
What's the Hebrew word for that? He wanted.
Dibra Tachtoinim.
What does Tachtoinim mean? No. What does Tachtoinim mean?
The bottom.
The bottom. To get to the bottom is Yerida. By definition. If it wasn't a Yerida, we wouldn't have that Aliyah. You know, the only reason why we have that is because it's the lowest world. Yes, it's the lowest world, and because it's the lowest world, Hashem receives so much pleasure and nachas from our avodah in the lowest world. We can receive the highest Aliyah from here. But if there is no Yerida, you don't get that Aliyah. It's specifically B'Tachtoinim. It's not. It is the lowest world. What do you mean? We can't compare it to Gan Eden. And also, as we continue in this letter, it'll become more clear this concept to you also. Okay. So we have over here that this tremendous level of the Shekhinah, which is above and beyond all worlds. You know, in general, we talk about the Shekhinah. Shekhinah is Malchus of Atzilus. Something which we've mentioned on many occasions. Malchus of Atzilus is above and beyond all the worlds. The worlds begin from the world of Bria. Malchus of Atzilus is something which the worlds can't contain. And that is the level which we experience again, which a Yid can experience through learning Torah. Kameshikosav, as the Pasuk says, Ki ani Hashem shoichin b'soich b'nei Yisrael. That Hashem says, I Hashem, I dwell amongst the Yidden, and that is Ayidei Esek HaTorah v'amitzvahs ba'asara davka. And that is through learning Torah and doing mitzvahs. This is a big chiddush over here. This is not only learning Torah, but also doing mitzvahs. It means anytime 10 Yidden,
with 10 people?
anytime, this is a chiddush of Alter Rebbe.
So
anytime when 10 Yidden are together doing a mitzvah, we have the same Hasharas Hashchina. I don't know the same, but we have Hasharas Hashchina also. Yeah.
Maybe this will be dumb, but like I just asked a question about Tefillah, which we know require 10 adult Jewish men. When we say 10 people by learning, would that be 10 adult Jewish men or 10 women, 10, or it's a non-question?
It's a very good question.
So then, what does the Baal Tanya have in mind when he says 10?
I don't-
10 people? 5 men, 5 women?
So I don't know the answer to your question, but it's an important question to be asked. In the summer of Tafshinun, in the summer of 1990, so the Rebbe came out with a big campaign of Asara Sheyeshvin trying to get minyanim of people to learn Torah together.
The Tanya says even Kol B'Hashul, the Sudish Chan, even for the Iran Torah.
We're going to get to that later, right? I mean, that's not the time. Kol B'Asara Shechin Tashari is a Maimer Chazal. Yeah, but that's actually later on in this page. We're going to learn that. So the Rebbe then came out with a Kol Kira, actually, which is that people should make shiurim and to learn Torah B'Rabbim. And the Rebbe speaks about in the Sikha, and in the Sikha, in the footnote of the Sikha, which is the Sikha which was edited by the Rebbe says the same, that women also, there is value in women also, 10 women getting together and learning Torah also. So from the
And he
context
certainly
of the Sikha,
wasn't making a feminist campaign.
what's wrong with feminists?
What I mean is he wasn't, the Rebbe was as
Rebbe's very much
traditional
a
as could
feminist.
be. What I mean it as from the way some people understand it.
Right.
He was the most traditional of the traditional.
Yeah. Now, it's actually a complicated topic. It's a complicated topic, and it's probably it's very possibly a machlokes between different poskim going back to Yaakov Emden and others. And the question is, why taka aren't women part of a minyan? Why can't women be counted for a minyan? So one way of looking at it, that's it. Women don't constitute part of a minyan. That's one way of looking at it. Sorry?
They don't have a chiyuv of learning. That's
So in other ways, they don't have a chiyuv. But what if there's something which they are mechuyev in? So then are they counted as a minyan? An area where they are mechuyev in? So for example, let's say Mikra Megillah. Can a woman be counted for a minyan in Mikra Megillah? Women are mechuyev in Mikra Megillah just like men are.
Yeah.
Another example is brought down as Kiddush Hashem. We know there's a concept, without getting into all the details, of the Asarim Yisrael, that when you have 10 Yidden, so then there's a chiyuv of Kiddush Hashem in ways which don't apply when there isn't a minyan. Now women are mechuyev in Kiddush Hashem, just like men are mechuyev in Kiddush Hashem. So if it's 10 women or 5 men and 5 women, does that constitute a minyan? And that's actually a machlokes apeskim about that. So it's possible that the question also applies to that.
And he just says in passing, he doesn't, put in parentheses, and by the way, this is by men, this is by women.
You have to remember who this letter is addressed to. This letter is addressed to men. Why am I saying that? Because this letter is addressed to minyanim. As we'll see, I started out saying this letter is addressed. I'll tell you, didn't have to bavar on that. Because this letter is addressed to the minyanim, and specifically, as we said earlier, it's addressing what the minyanim should be doing between mincha and ma'ariv. And I find it doubtful that, especially back in the day, and even to this very day, not many women go to shul for mincha and ma'ariv.
Yeah.
So it's a good question, but one thing's for sure. As I said, the Rebbe writes that there's absolutely value in 10 women also learning Torah together. Is that the same value that the Rebbe is describing over here? I don't know, but it's a little unclear. It's a little unclear. That whole concept.
See it in a way in the matter of a zimun. Women are not chiyuv in a zimun, but they can make a zimun if there are only 3 women.
Right,
there
but if there's
reading.
10 women, they can't do Baruch Elokeinu.
Right, but they can still join together and.
Correct. Okay, that's actually a good question,
Thank you.
and I don't know fully the answer, but all I can say is it's a little complicated.
Okay.
Now, so once again, to emphasize, the Rebbe says over here, this is not only Torah but mitzvahs. So what are the kind of mitzvahs that Yidden do together? Okay, whatever you have 10 Yidden sitting that are together doing a mitzvah,
Davar shebekdusha.
whatever it is. No, so a davar shebekdusha is different. A davar shebekdusha, for example, kedusha, Kadosh Baruch Hu, that can't be done unless there's a minyan. But here the Rebbe is talking about there are many things that we could do without a minyan. Learning Torah, doing mitzvahs, but there's this additional value when there's a minyan doing it together, because when that happens, then we have the Hashras Hashchina. Chazal tell us, Asya Toich Chulu. How do we know the value of a minyan? So because we have there's 2 psukim. One pasuk that says, V'nikdashti b'soich b'nei Yisrael. So we see that when do we have a Shechina Shriya? When is V'nikdashti? When do we have the Kedusha of the Eibishter present amongst Klal Yisrael? B'soich b'nei Yisrael. And then there's another pasuk where the pasuk where it says V'negei to the Meraglim, he says Ad Masai Hibadlu metoicha ida harazais.
That's by Korach, right?
No, by the Meraglim.
Meraglim?
Meraglim. So we know that we see that the Meraglim are called the Eda.
Oh,
The
they're
Meraglim are called the
Eda,
Eda,
correct.
called the congregation. How many? But the Eda Hara, an evil congregation. How many? So how many evil Meraglim? Whether there were 10 evil Meraglim, because Yeshua and Kalev were tzaddikim. So from there we learn that that a minyan is with 10.
Sure.
In fact, we learn it from Rishayim
It's
is
fascinating. Yes.
yes.
Yeah.
It's negative.
Yeah. You know, when we talk about the Meraglim as a Shrine, we also have to be careful. Everything is relative. So, but what's so interesting over here is the word. So you think, okay, so we need to know that a minyan is 10. So we have Iggeres Shava. But why did the Torah specifically choose the word toich to bring out this idea that 10 people constitute a minyan? Iggeres Shava could have been with any word. So I was going to say that it's something which is, this teaches us a lesson. What does toich mean? Toich means a monk. It teaches us that when there's a minyan of Yidden, the toich Hashem is betoicham. V'alzeh namar b'kir HaKodesh. Regarding this, it says that where is the kedusha of the Shekhinah? When there's a minyan, it's b'kir b'cha. It's among us. It's mamish among us. The ein davar shebekdusha b'pachos ma'asara. And in order to have a davar shebekdusha, in order to have to say davar shebekdusha, you need to have 10. And the reason why again is because that's when we have the hashras hashchina betoich v'niktashti b'soich b'nei Yisrael b'kir HaKodesh. There is that powerful presence of the Shekhinah among us when there's a minyan. Umeshum hachinami, and for this reason also, itzrech l'hu l'razal l'meilach mikra. Chazal need to learn from Apostle. Menayin shafilu echad sheyeshav esik b'Torah. The mission says in Pirkei Avos. How do we know? And what if one person is sitting and learning Torah? How do we know? And what does it say? Ve'af kam zois, and even so, leimatzu leismach mena mikra elul kviyas char belvad. If you look at the Mishnah, what does it say over there? Menayin shafilu echad sheyeshav b'Torah. And what is over there? HaKodesh Baruch Hu kivei elischar. And kivei elischar is not hashras hashchina. So the Mishnah says. How do we know that even the one person, the Eibishter's kivei for him schar, the Eibishter establishes for him a reward, and for that we have the pasuk, right? I think the pasuk is Yeshev Badad Yidaim Ki Hashem Natal Alav, and we need a special pasuk to teach us that. L'yochid lifi erkoi, lifi erech hamerubim. So Taka, there's a reward that's over there, a special reward for every single individual who sits and learns Torah, and then when you have more. So obviously that reward is amplified and multiplied according to how many people are learning. But that's why you have 1 and 3 and 5, right? And every single one of them is a greater schar, and perhaps even also somewhat of a level of ashras hashchina. You want to talk about the real ashras hashchina? There's no comparison. There's no comparison. And that's nafka something which is 10. Because even though Taka the Mishnah says it about other numbers also, but obviously the fact that the Mishnah begins and its opening shot is Asara Sheyesh Reiskin B'Torah Shechina Shrei B'Neim. That when you have 10 Yidden sitting and learning Torah, the Shechina is among them, that teaches us there is something unique and special, specifically when you have 10 Yidden learning Torah. So if you have less, okay, you have Kviyat Schar. But the amitas inyan, the ultimate concept of Ashras Hashchina is dafka when you have 10. What is the difference between Hashras Hashchina as opposed to reward, something which is understood to those people who understand them? What is that? What is Schar Shemeir Hashem? That Hashem illuminates. Lenefesh tidrashanu, to the soul that searches him out. Ba'ir Torah, say the Eibishter is meir, illuminates his nefesh with the light of Torah. Shehi, what is Torah? Shehu, so that, which is what? What is this oir? The oir of Torah is mata levushe mamish. Is mamish part of Hashem's garment. V'lachein nikras ha-Torah oir, and that's why Torah is called light. Torah oir. Shenemar, as it says, oita oir kasalma. That Hashem, he wears light like his garment. Torah is his garment, which is light. What does that mean? What is the purpose of a garment? So
cover.
Cover you up.
So to cover you up. But not mamash. Because if that was the purpose of a garment, if that was the only purpose of a garment, we'd all be wearing paper bags. It covers you up, right? So obviously there's something more to clothing than just covering you up. There's another function also.
It's also decorative.
It's decorative. It's decorative.
Protection.
What is that?
Again,
Protection
protecting
from
you
the
also, you can wear that, then maybe not a paper bag because then we'll get wet in the rain, but you can wear a plastic garbage bag if you're only looking for protection.
It keeps you warm though.
Plastic keeps you very warm.
It protects you.
The paper might
protects
fall
you
apart
from
in the rain, you know.
elements, which means that it can do a lot of different things to protect you.
When my wife went and got her palette done, you ever heard such a thing? In the first 40 years of my life, I never heard of it. You never heard of getting a palette done?
What is palette?
Palette as an
Palate as in the mouth.
No.
as an artist,
It's a whole thing. You go to a professional, they tell you which colors you're supposed to wear. They look at you, and I don't know, they have a certain, it's a munchas. You are supposed to wear beige and brown. You're supposed to wear pink and yellow. And that's what's going to make you look good. Anyway, it's not about protecting from the elements.
It's decorative. It makes
It's
it
decorative. Clothing reveals you also to a certain degree. In other words, as much as it conceals,
loud colors, quiet colors.
right? And when someone wears loud colors, what does that reveal about the person?
You're loud.
A loud personality. Right. And when you're walking the street and you see someone wearing a blue jacket and blue pants and a badge, what does that reveal about the person?
It's a
You're a
cop.
cop.
Probably, yeah, stay away.
I wasn't suggesting that the purpose of garments was just to protect you from the elements. I mean,
a lot more.
But that's
It's
one
more,
of the
right.
reasons.
No, there's no question. So the garment stock is there to cover you, but it's also there to reveal you, and that's why everyone wears different types of clothing, and what types of clothing you wear and the type of clothing you wear, because clothing reveals a person. It's interesting to have it as a dual function. Ironic that which conceals also reveals. And Torah we say Torah is Hashem's levush, right? Because the pasuk said we know the Torah oir, right? Neir mitzvah Torah oir, and what is the pasuk? Oita oir kesalma. So Torah is light, and it says that Hashem wears light as a garment. That means that Torah is Hashem's garment. But 2 + 2 = 4, or 1 + 1 = 2. Why is Torah called Hashem's garment? Because also Torah has both of these functions. On the one hand, the Torah conceals. What does that mean? It conceals. We're busy, we're sitting, we sit down and we learn a Mishnah, Shnayim and Batalas, right? Or a Machla Para B'Chameir, right? Or a Kodesh Tzem Ladir, whatever the Mishnah is we're learning. And what is this? This is Halakus, it's godliness. It's pure godliness that we're learning. But it's hidden. What is it hidden in? The Halakus is hidden in some sort of, in a Para and a Chameir. It's hidden in some sort of in physical issues or problems, right? So on the one hand, it conceals Hashem, but on the other hand, it reveals Hashem to us. When we learn Torah, that's the Gili Olakus. That's literally Hashem revealing Himself to us when we learn Torah. So what is the schar for learning Torah? The schar for learning Torah is the Gili Elikus that we experience while we're learning Torah. It's Hashem illuminating into our neshama of Himself, because that is Torah. Torah is the levush of Hashem, which reveals Hashem within us. That is the schar. You know, this is something that we've encountered many times while learning Tanya. We're learning different chassidus. The reward is never something external from that which we're doing. The reward is part and parcel of what we are doing. In our case over here, what is the reward for learning Torah? Is the Gili Elikus, which Torah constitutes itself. The problem is, the problem is that the light of Hashem is infinite. Our neshama is not infinite. Our neshama is finite. Our neshama is limited. And therefore, Gam Eir Hashem HaMeir, but also the light of Hashem, which shines into our neshama when we're learning Torah. Hu Gevuli Mitzumtzum. It has to be finite. It has to be limited. Mislamish B'Teicha, and this way it's able to be mislamished. It's able to enter our neshama in a primistic way.
The neshama is spiritual, so how is it limited? I mean, I don't understand it. Something that's spiritual can't be limited.
There's 5 parts in the neshama, no?
If you're thinking of limited as something which is 3-dimensional, then yes, the neshama is not
It's-
3-dimensional.
So what does that mean? that it's
Limited means that it's physical. So a neshama is not physical.
No, that's a definition that you just gave, which is not necessarily correct.
Okay.
Is your intellect physical?
That's what I'm asking.
Is your intellect physical or spiritual?
It's spiritual, I think.
And is it infinite?
No.
Okay.
So
there
what
you
does
have
he mean
something-
that it's limited?
I just give an example. Our spiritual capacities are also limited. Our neshama's capacity, yes, it's spiritual, but it's limited in the spiritual sense. Something which is spiritual can also be finite.
What does he
In
want to-
its current state, but the neshama goes into different states as well. I mean, when somebody is nifter, the neshama goes somewhere else.
And it's still finite, it's still limited.
Even though it's a part of the Etzem?
The essence, the essential state is the neshama as it's not one with Hashem, so there it's infinite. But we're talking about the neshama as it becomes a distinct entity. Is there even in the higher world it's limited? Yeah.
Could be go 2 ways. One is, let's say, if you see a car, it says it's limited, so people think, oh, it's chashuv, that it has certain capacities that others don't have. On the other hand, it could be limited that the person can only go up to a certain capacity because they don't have the ability to go to a higher capacity. And
Sure,
they're
it is.
limited.
It's the same thing with the love that we experience. Our love is spiritual, and it's also limited. The amount that a human being can love, for example. The same thing, again, all the neshama, because it's a creation, all of its capacities are limited, and it would not be able to be a keli for that which is infinite. And that's why the Oyer of Hashem, which is Me'ernit, is a finite light. Yeah.
Who's the Rosman there?
Sorry?
What does he want to bring out yet?
We're getting there.
Oh.
Right now, he's defining what Kviyas Char is. We're saying that people, let's say, learning Torah, there's a Shras Hashchina, and he's trying to distinguish that and differentiate that from when we're saying, well, one person learns Torah also. You have Kviyas Char. What's the difference? Both of them are spiritual. The Kviyas Char. The Kviyas Char is, again, what is the reward for learning Torah, which is experienced even by a single person who's sitting and learning Torah? The reward is the Gili Elokus, the revelation of Hashem within the neshama. And now the Alter Rebbe is going to say, and what is the practical relevance or the practical benefit of this Gili Elokus? The Rebbe says, Va'al Kedan, therefore, Yispoel Aleiv Mevakshi Hashem B'Shas HaTfilah U'Kiyetzema. Those who search out Hashem. You notice they said earlier, L'Nefesh Tidid Hashem, a few lines earlier. Those who search out Hashem during davening, U'Kiyetzema, or in other times, I guess, of similar to davening, so their hearts will be moved. Ki bo yismach libam, they'll be able to take joy. Their hearts will be able to take joy in Hashem, v'yogel, and happiness of gilas v'ranin, v'tisanig nafsham, and their souls will take pleasure b'noyam Hashem, in the sweetness of Hashem, v'oirei, and in Hashem's light, b'higalase mima'at alavushay, when Hashem is revealed from the place where He's covered by His clothing, Shia Torah, which is the Torah. V'yatza kebarach chitzay, and when Hashem's arrow shoots out like lightning, v'zui kviyas char ha'Torah, this is the reward for learning Torah, ha'kavua tamid, which is constant, v'nefesh amei laba, in the soul of the one who toils in learning Torah. So what's the Alter Rebbe saying here? He's saying again that, interesting, l'nefesh, if you go back a few lines ago, right? Shemeir Hashem l'nefesh tidrashana. Because we have many people learn Torah, but when someone learns Torah Lishma means because he seeks out Hashem. Person who wants a relationship with Hashem, wants to connect to Hashem, wants to learn Hashem's Torah. So then there's a special gili, a special revelation of the Eira Torah within that person's nefesh. And what is the result of that? The result of that is that when that person goes and davens, their experience of davening is going to be entirely different. They're going to feel the pleasure of Hashem.
So
They're going to feel, they're going to feel the joy in Hashem. And we tend to think, well, my experience of davening is dependent on how much effort I put into davening. And Al Rebbe is telling us here, interestingly, your experience of davening is actually dependent on how much Torah you learn. And why is that? So besides the fact, and Al Rebbe doesn't mention it, obviously when you learn Torah, you have a greater understanding, greater appreciation, so then obviously it's going to enhance your davening. But here Al Rebbe is saying something else. Because when you learn Torah, Torah ultimately is the oir, the levush and the oir of Hashem. And that oir enters you, and it makes you a holier person, and it sensitizes you. And when do you experience the benefits of that? When you daven. Because when you learn Torah properly, again, lenefesh t'dereshana, when you learn Torah, and you seek out Hashem through learning Torah, then afterwards when you daven, it's going to be a different experience, because the oir of Torah illuminates your neshama and allows you to experience davening in an entirely different way, which you could not have experienced it without that. Yes. Yeah.
I mean, I guess two simple things. One is that it certainly, based on that, it's so important to go from learning to davening, because one will carry over. And the other thing, what about this? Go the other way, that your davening will affect your learning.
That's discussed in many different.
I mean, the only thing I can think, like we say in Bahariv now, that if you say in the beginning of Berachos HaShachar that you should make the Torah sweet, and then you learn, hopefully, it goes the other way also.
Sure. But we talk about maybe Saknesses or Beis HaMedrash. That we're supposed to, straight from davening, you're supposed to learn Torah. Definitely many places in Chassidus it talks about that idea, that progression of davening to learning. But it works both ways. The davening impacts the learning impacts the davening.
But here he's saying the learning affects the davening.
Right.
He doesn't say the learning affects the learning.
Because it's not right.
That's not what he says.
It's not the conversation there. Everything is right. There are many truths, and this letter he's trying to bring out this idea.
So it's like a collateral benefit.
Yes.
Which is interesting. I mean.
Yeah. But this all is the kviyas schar. This all is the reward for learning Torah. But that's not what we're talking about here. Here, the Alter Rebbe is trying to talk about something much greater, which is the value of learning Torah with a minyan. Because again, kviyas schar, the reward for learning Torah is even when you learn Torah by yourself. Aval hashra, when we talk about hashra sashchinan, we talk about the presence of the Shekhinah, which that again is only when you have 10 Yidden sitting and learning Torah. This is an extremely, again, remember we said that the Kviyas Schar is a limited light from Hashem. Why? Because since we are limited, so therefore the light of Torah
is limited. But even 10 will also be limited.
No, Aval Hashra, the presence of the Shekhinah, which is when we learn Torah, Ya'ora Tzuma Meir Hashem, is a tremendously powerful radiance from the light of Hashem, HaMeir Ba, which is Meir to us, Beli Gvul V'Tachlis. It is an infinite and unlimited revelation.
How does the Nefesh handle it?
And the Nefesh can't handle it. Therefore, Ve'eina Yochel Islabish B'Nefesh Gvulis. It cannot enter a limited Nefesh. It cannot be mislabish. It cannot be incorporated within it or integrated within it. Ki imra, they're makif Allah amal ma'ilom. It transcends it and surrounds it. Mireisha v'adragla, and surrounds it from its head till its foot. K'mesha Chazal, as our sages tell us, akol be'asara shchinta sharia, that whenever there's a minyan, the shchina sharia present, k'loimar aleya mil ma'ila. It's above them, and that's why it says, it doesn't say bichol asara shchinta sharia. It doesn't say in every minyan the shchina. It says akol. What does akol mean? On top of, above them.
So how do you experience it?
Kleimar, meaning kinoyam Hashem asher efiyeh b'masi yadeinu, basic adei of mitzvahs. The sweetness of Hashem. Sorry, we skipped the line. Meshkasav, as the Apostle says, v'inoyam Hashem alikeinu, v'inoyam Hashem aleinu. May the sweetness of Hashem be upon us. Upon us again implies something which is transcends us, above us. Umasi yadenu, and our handiwork, let it be established upon us. What does that mean? the sweetness of Hashem, which reveals itself in our handiwork, be'esek ha'Torah v'mitzvahs. When we learn Torah and do mitzvahs, de'iraisa v'kudsha brichu kul echad, and we know that the Torah that we're learning is one with Hashem, yiskoinin ve'yishra aleinu milmayla, it should be established upon us, and it should dwell upon us, l'yesei b'ligul v'tachlis, because it is infinite, ve'enim mislabish b'nafshenu v'sichlenu. It doesn't enter our souls and our minds, the pnimius. The alken, therefore, einonu masigim b'sichlenu, we cannot apprehend or comprehend or grasp in our minds haneimus v'harevus, the sweetness minoyam Hashem, of the sweetness Hashem, v'ziv hashchina bligvul v'tachlis, and the shine of the Shechina, which is without any limitation, asher miskoiden, which is established v'sheira aleinu, and resides upon us b'masi yadeinu, in our work, the Torah mitzvahs, and our Torah mitzvahs beravim dafka, specifically when we do it beravim. So the Rebbe says over here that when we learn Torah, but we learn Torah alone, so then what happens is that a very limited, okay, let's put it in different words. Torah, the light of Torah, the light of Hashem, which is in the Torah, is unlimited. When you're learning Torah alone, you have no connection whatsoever to that light, because you're limited. So the schar that you get is that only a very limited amount of the light, a finite extension of the light enters you, which is amazing and beautiful, and allows you afterwards to have davening on a totally different level. That is the kriyas schar. That is the reward that's given. How about when you learn Torah and you learn it to minyan? So then you have Ashras HaShechina, Shechina Shriya. What is Shechina Shriya? That infinite light is dwelling upon the minyan. But you're going to say, but I'm finite. I cannot handle that. I can't process that kind of light. And the answer is yes, you can.
How?
However, you cannot. The answer is that you cannot.
Cannot.
You cannot. However, there is an impact. There's something which has an impact in a way of makif, in a transcendent way. The fact that something is makif doesn't mean that it's not there. It has an impact, but an impact in a makiftic way, in a transcendent way. So every single person who's part of that minyan is actually impacted by that infinite light of Hashem, which is why the Alter Rebbe says in the earlier on that aliyah, which we receive on learning Torah Basara, is because absolutely we're sitting here right now and we're learning Torah with 10 Yidden, and the Shekhinah is here, and even though we can't process that revelation, because that is the infinite revelation which we can't process, but we're impacted in a way of makif.
What is the nature of the impact that's going on?
So let's talk about for a second what that means. What does that mean that we're impacted in a way of makif? So an example that's brought down often is, imagine you go to a tzaddik and you hear Torah from a tzaddik and you understand what the tzaddik is saying, beautiful words of Torah, and you're enriched by it. That's one person. And that is another person who doesn't go to the tzaddik at all. Stays at home. Then there's another person who goes to the tzaddik and hears the words of Torah from the tzaddik, but that person is too simple, and his mind is too limited and simple, and the words are too high. He doesn't understand anything that the tzaddik is saying. But he's there and he takes in the whole sight and he doesn't understand anything.
So what he gets from it?
So would you say that the person who didn't go and the person who went and didn't understand anything are the same?
No.
No.
The one who went got something out of it.
He got something. But how would you compare him with the person who went and understood?
That's also different.
So the difference is one person wasn't impacted at all. The person who understood the Torah, that person was impacted in a pneumistic way. In other words, he was able to actually process that which he heard and that which he saw and understand it. And in other words, process it using his intellect.
Intellectual, it should be even by one person. It shouldn't. If it's just an intellectual thing, then it shouldn't. It should even be by one person. If it's something else, then I can understand 10 people making a difference?
I don't understand your question.
You gave a mushal of the tzaddik speaking in
I'm
one.
still in the middle of it. But
Oh,
let me
okay.
finish.
Then I'll hold off.
And then you have the middle person. The middle person came, he saw, didn't understand anything. But to say that he wasn't impacted, the scene impacts the scene of a tzaddik. Seeing a tzaddik, davening, teaching, even if you don't understand anything.
It's a certain hashpah.
But what's that hashpah? I didn't understand anything. I didn't process anything. What's that hashpah? It's a hashpah in a way of makif. It's a hashpah in a way of makif. That sometimes, call it sixth sense maybe, sometimes we can be impacted even though the thing is above and beyond us. It's above and beyond us, and nevertheless, it does have some sort of effect on us. So the same thing over here also. When a person is learning Torah b'yichidus, it's like you never went to the tzaddik. In other words, the Shekhinah is so removed that you can't even say that that person is impacted in a way of makif. You can't even say that. On the other hand, when you learn, but the limited light of the Torah, again, is appreciated by that person, and that is the Kvi Yishar, which, as I mentioned, also helps that person daven, etc. When you're learning Torah ba'asara, when you're learning Torah with a minyan, so what we have over here is that the infinite light of Hashem is actually present in the room, and even though we don't have the capacity to be able to process it, but it absolutely beferish, it has an incredible impact on every single one of the Yidden who's part of that minyan.
How do you define the impact?
1 second, let's...
Yeah, that was the same question I asked. What is the nature of the impact?
How do you define
Is it
it?
something we'd be aware of, or it's just happening on its own? Like, we're going to have a Ma'ariv momentarily, and there'll be 10 people. According to what you're laying out tonight, what will be the impact that will be happening
Right,
to
so
us?
it's not, the impact is not as immediate as the impact of Kvi Yishar, because it's something which is, like, what is the impact of the person who watches the tzaddik? When I hear Torah from a tzaddik, what's the impact? That I have a new understanding of what's going on. On the other hand, over here, what is the impact? It's much less tangible, but it absolutely has an impact. And also, we'll see that the main impact of this is going to be taka after the neshama goes off to Gan Eden, as we'll see in B'ezras Hashem as we continue. You had a question? Okay. So it turns out actually there's multiple different levels over here, because you notice that Alter Rebbe also quoted a Maimer Chazal, Akol be'asara shchinta shari, which is that whenever there's 10 Yidden, the Shekhinah is there, and that's even if they're not learning Torah. So we have learning Torah b'yichidus. We have when the Shekhinah, when there's 10 Yidden, they're not learning Torah. We have the Shekhinah when there's 10 Yidden, they are learning Torah. And that's because also there are different levels of makif. I'll give you an example. The different levels of makif. Let me explain what I'm saying. So imagine that there's a book. A simple storybook. You read it, you understand it. Okay? Then imagine that someone gave you an academic article to read, written by some physicist or some... Anyone ever read an academic article? You know what those look like?
Yeah, they have lots of footnotes.
Yeah, and they're barely
And they're very dense.
And they're barely understandable. If you're not in the field,
Yeah.
right, they're barely understandable. Okay. Now, let's say, so that's scenario number 2. Now, scenario number 3 is, let's say that someone gives you a book to read, and you open it up, and it's written in French. Anyone here understands French? Can read French? No, good. Okay, so that's scenario number 3. Scenario number 4, imagine someone gives you a book, and you open it up, what?
It's the Zohar.
And it is written in Korean. Right, so you have storybook, simple storybook, academic article, French book, Korean book. Let's look at each one of these things, okay? The storybook, I understand. Academic article,
You don't understand.
I don't really understand, but it's written in English. You can probably pick up a lot of what, get a basic general idea, but you're not going to understand the details. The book in French, I don't understand, but at least I can read the words. The Korean,
can't even read the words.
Can't even
You
read
don't
the
even know what
words.
the characters mean.
Right. Okay? Now, the first level is pnimi. When I read something, I understand it. That's pnimius. That means that I absorbed it, I integrated, I processed it. The next three levels are all levels of already beginning to get makif. Already the makif. Now the question is, how makif is it? Not every makif is the same. Just because I can't process it fully doesn't mean that there is the academic article, which is, it's already not fully bipnimius, because I don't really fully get it.
I mean, partially get it.
Partially get it. Then there's the book in French, which I already don't get at all, but at least I can read the words, right? What I'm saying is there are different levels of when something is beyond me. How beyond me is it?
Is this along the lines that they say that if you daven in Hebrew, even if you don't understand the words, you get credit? Because since you're saying Lashon HaKodesh, somehow this...
Maybe. I don't know.
All right.
But so the same thing over here we're saying is
Your intention is to daven to God, so that's,
there are different. So the bottom line is, and this also is going to respond to what you're saying originally. There are different levels of Shekhinah, the different levels of Asheras Shekhinah.
right.
And what the Rebbe is saying is that when there's 10 people who are sitting learning Torah, we're getting the most intense level of the Shekhinah. And at the same time, somehow, some way, we're actually connecting to it. Not in a pneumistic way. We're not reading the storybook and getting it. But somehow, some way, we're connecting it and it has an impact on us. And next week we'll find out also how that impact carries on. Now, also when there's 10 Yidden sitting together, and we're not learning Torah, there's also Shekhinah. That's a lower level of Shekhinah. And we're not really connecting it too much. It's much more removed from us. It's like the Korean. When you're learning Torah, it's that double with the minyan. On the one hand, it's the highest level of Shekhinah, and the same way, it's having some sort of meaningful impact on us, even though it's an impact in a way of makif. And we'll continue on this, Mr. Shem.